Okay, so now since we already know, the type of layers that we're going to be using, we will need to see. Let me just stop sharing my screen for a second, and then you get a new share, so we can have a share of this and of this as well. So we have two screens to be sharing. So as we said, we need to start creating our first layer. Now, the first layer that we're going to be creating, first thing I need to do is to start opening the layer properties. And this can be accessed from here. So I'm just going to click here. And once you do that, there is a big menu that's going to be appearing. Now, if you need to move this, you're going to find out that moving it is not easy. So the best way is to go to this bar here, okay, where you have the X and the settings or properties. So I'm just going to click here and then I can move it. Now you can see that it's not really the most versatile tool to use, but you can just try as much as possible to bring it in front of your screen. And then from this bar here, if you clicked anywhere else, this is going to close the layer properties. So I'm just going to resize that. So if you need to resize, all you have to do is just click and drag like this from any corner. All right, I don't prefer that you click and drag from here, from this corner, because this, you might accidentally close this. So it's best at the beginning to move it, okay, to center it in the screen from the layer properties manager on the side, and then you can resize it from the opposite corner. Now, you can see that we have different layers here, and those layers are dedicated actually to the title block. So we have those, and one of the things you can do with layers, which is very convenient, is that I just want to move this so you can see it better. So we can turn off and on the layers that we don't want to see while we're drawing, or layers that we don't want to print. And you can see that is that some layers here are not going to be printed, and which is grayed out. So say, for example, I want to turn the cyan, which is the D title block. I'm just going to also to move this a little bit. So that layer here, I want to turn it off. So I'm just, all I have to do is just to click here. Okay. And once I do that, it's no longer on the sun. And once I do that, it's no longer activated. It's still in the drawing, and I can just unfreeze it again using this. Or sometimes we say we're gonna thaw the layer. Now, if I did that, you're gonna see that this is exactly the same thing. However, there is the difference between those two features, because they might seem the same. This is turning it on and off, while this is basically what we say we're going to freeze the layer. But the difference is freezing the layer saves much more memory inside of AutoCAD than turning it off, because this is going to be more convenient when you have, sometimes the drawing is going to be more than 100, okay, not dealing with 5 or 6 or even 20. So this becomes more convenient because the drawing is going to get very heavy, and you don't want any of the layers to be in the cached memory of CAD. Here, even if we turn it on or off, the layer is still in the CAD cache memory. So that's the difference between those two. Now, if I and when you click on the sun, or the sun is coming out, this is meaning that you activated the layer again. Now, this is locking the layer, meaning that this, if I lock the layer, I cannot actually, or no one can be able to work on that layer or to do anything to that layer, do any editing to that layer. If I turned off the, when you lock it like that, okay, you can see that, it becomes grayed out. Grayed out means that nothing can be done to any element on that layer, and you cannot edit it. This option here is for printing. If you don't want the layer to be printed, okay, all you have to do is just click here. And this means that whatever that you're going to be drawing here and printing it, that layer is not going to be part of anything that you're going to print. Okay. Now we have dedicated colors, okay, to each layer. You have the line type. So if the line type is continuous or is it going to be dashed or double dashed? Or so here is, because each layer does have its own line type, the line weight, and this is in millimeters. So and we're going to leave this in here because this is related more to what's going to be printed. It's geared toward more to the layout space and where we are going to be printing off. So we're going to leave this off for now. So those are just explaining what are those icons are. Now, if I click here, this means that I'm going to create a new layer. Now, the first layer that I'm not going to create every layer for you in this exercise, but I'll definitely share with you what are the layers that you need to be creating on your own. And I said that I'm going to be sharing this with you on your course page. So if I go back here again, now if I want to create the first layer, now the first layer that I will be creating here, I can start by I can do this. I can start by those bubbles here or those grid lines. Okay. So to do that, you can see from here, I have S for grid. And S is dedicated for the structural, and grid is dedicated for the grid or the structural grid that we use for our drawing. So that's the first one that I will be creating. So I'm just going to go back here, and then I'm going to click on this icon here. And once I click on an icon, there is a new layer that is going to be assigned. And I'm just going to put in S in capital. And I have a dash in between. And B, I think this is grid. So GRID in capital as well. If we're going to go back, that's it. And there is nothing else. There is nothing else that we're going to be adding to this. Now, we need to specify the colors. Now, where are we going to get the colors from, or where are we going to get the specification for this? Well, there is another file that I have posted. Let me just share the screen, make a new share. Okay, which is here. And I'm just going to have a new share so you can share. You can see all of those screens with me. Okay, and this is the file that I'm going to be posting also in Course Bulletin and News, and we can see where we get those. So the file does have a lot of layers, as we said, and this is the grid. So if I zoomed in like this, I know that the color is this gray, which does have a number. There is a center line, and the layer thickness, or the line thickness, is 0.25, and this is the one that is dedicated to the base building structural grid. So I already created this. Now I need to assign a color, and I need us to assign a line type, and I need to assign a line weight. Okay, so those are the three things that I will assign the layer after creating the layer and giving it the right name. So I'm just going to go back here. All right, and I know that this is a color that I want to. I'm going to click here in the color, and I'm going to type 8. Once I type 8, okay, this is going to actually select the color 8. We're going to see that, and I'm going to click on OK, and immediately the color is going to be turned to the color that is designated as 8. Now I need center 2, because this is, again, if I go back here, and this is the S building grid here, center 2. So I need the layer line type as center. So I'm just going to go back here, and then I'm going to click on the line type. And from here, okay, I can see this, it's not in there. But actually, if you click on load, right, I'm going to make this bigger, then I will find center 2. So if I scroll down, this is the center 2 line, which is here. So I'm just going to click on it, and I'm going to click OK, and I'm going to select it again, which is here. I'm going to click OK, and immediately you can see that I managed to select it. Now, the final thing is we need to take a look at the line thickness, because we might need to change that. So I'm going to go back here again, and I know that this line thickness here in the grid is 0.25. So I might go back, to my drawing. All right, and I'm gonna click here, and I need to select 0.25 millimeter. I'm gonna click OK, and this is how we created our first layer. Layer name, we need to click here on new layer, and then we're gonna put the layer name in capital, and there is a dash in between, and then we're gonna select the color from the color swatch. And again, all of those layers are basically part of that sheet that I will be posting on your course page. Okay, so you just need to find them. It's a little bit hard to find them, especially with those colored boxes or red boxes, but make sure to scroll all the way down. Most of the layers that we're going to be creating belong to the structural, starting with S, and we have some on the interior with I, and we have a little bit of plumbing, which are the building plumbing fixtures. So you're going to be using S a lot, we're going to use I a lot, and we're going to be using the plumbing, the P as well. So let's go back here and start assigning objects now that we have this. Now, if I want the layer to be active, I can click here on this icon. So this layer is going to be the active layer. But for now, that's fine. I mean, we can do that, and you can see that once I do this, the green check mark is basically saying that this is an active layer. So anything that I will start drawing is going to have that color and that line type and that line weight. So anything like any line or circle, any of those tools that I use are going to have to be on the S grid layer. So I'm just going to close this for now. Okay, and you can see that it's here. This is providing me with a view of what's the layer that is being in use right now. And this is what I will start using. So for the grid layers, for the grid, I'm going to select those. And you can see once I click on those, this is no longer the view of the current layer. But take a look at what's going to happen when I click on those, and I keep clicking on each one of those lines here. And I'm zooming on and off, in and out my screen using the middle mouse wheel. And then I'm going to click here, and I'm going to select the S grid. And immediately you can see that they are placed on that layer. Now, if I'm going to click escape on my keyboard, and then I'm going to do the exact same thing using, okay, the grid, or using that same, I'm going to click on selecting all of the vertical grid lines like this, zooming out, and I still have one here. All right, and then I'm going to click here, and again, S grid. So that's basically, we placed all of the grid lines. I'm going to press escape on my keyboard, and all of the grid lines, the vertical ones and the horizontal one, have been placed on the right layer. Now, if I take a look on the bubbles themselves, the bubbles of the grid, do they have their own layer? Let's take a look at what I have placed here. Yes, we do have the structural grid bubbles. They do not belong to the grid. They belong to their own layer that's called S grid IDEN. And you can find all of the properties for this layer, such as the line weight and the line type and the color on that sheet, as I said. So let's take a look at the S grid. First of all, we're going to create this, and then we're going to take a look at the properties of this layer. So I'm just going to click here. Okay, and we remember S grid IDEN. So I'm just going to click here, and we're going to go to the layer properties. Okay, I'm going to move this a little bit, and then I'm going to click here on new layer. I'm going to type S grid and IDEN, and then we're going to take a look at the properties. So if I'm taking a look here at S grid IDEN, it's red, okay, and it's continuous, and it's 0.13. So let's change this to red, and this is the primary color red, so we wouldn't have any problem in recognizing it. I don't need to find a designated number for it. So I'm going to click here and I'm going to click back on that. And this is the red one, which is, I think it's, once you click on it, it's number 1. And we're going to click OK. And then after that, that's continuous. So I'm just going to click here on the line type and select continuous. And then, as we said, I think this is, it's 0.13. So I'm going to go back here and I'm going to change this to 0.13. So I need to find that, clicking OK. And if I want to make this current, I can actually click here and making this layer the current layer. So I'm going to close this for now. And if I'm going to go here. Now let's pick all of those grid bubbles and assign them their new layer. Okay, so this is basically how it should be. This is how it your drawing should be. Now, I know that you're going to go through all of those and you're going to create those on your own. The grid dimensions or the columns, let's go as the columns, and then we're going to cover the grid dimensions and the other elements that might be also needed to be explained. So the grid dims, and that's the base building structural grid dimensions. So if I take a look here, okay, I have those dimensions, and those dimensions need to be on that layer. So if I take a look at the interior design layer designation, I take SBLDG dims. Okay, it's red, it's continuous, and it's 0.13. So it's exactly the same as the iGrid, except for the fact that you still need, even if you see all of the qualities of the layer are identical, you still need to place those elements on a different layer.